The woman lying in the hay looked like an angel fallen from grace, her dark hair matted with blood and dust, her dress torn and filthy, and Quinn Zeller nearly dropped his lantern when her lips moved to form a single word that made his blood run cold. It was late September in 1878, and the Kansas prairie had turned golden under the harvest moon. Quinn had returned to his small ranch outside Abilene after 3 days of driving cattle to market, bone-tired and looking forward to nothing more than his own bed. Instead, he found this stranger in his barn, barely breathing, her face bruised purple along one cheekbone. He knelt beside her in the hay, setting the lantern down carefully, and that was when she whispered it. Benjamin. The name hit him like a fist to the gut. Benjamin Zeller. His younger brother, dead these past 4 years, shot down in a bank robbery gone wrong in Dodge City. Quinn had not heard that name spoken aloud in so long he had almost convinced himself he could forget. "Miss," Quinn said, his voice rough from disuse. He lived alone out here, spoke mainly to his horses and the occasional ranch hand he hired for seasonal work. "Miss, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open, revealing irises the color of spring grass, bright even in the dim lantern light. Fear flashed across her face and she tried to scramble backward, but her body would not cooperate. She let out a small cry of pain and collapsed back into the hay. "Easy now," Quinn said, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "You are safe here. I am not going to hurt you. My name is Quinn Zeller. This is my ranch." The woman stared at him, her breath coming in shallow gasps. She was young, probably no more than 22 or 23, and pretty despite the bruises and dirt. Her dress had once been fine, he could tell, made of good blue calico, though now it was ruined beyond repair. "Zeller," she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "Quinn Zeller." "That is right," he said, surprised. "Do I know you?" "No," she said, and then her eyes rolled back and she fainted. Quinn caught her before her head could hit the barn floor. She weighed almost nothing in his arms, and he could feel every rib through the thin fabric of her dress. Someone had hurt this woman badly and recently. His jaw tightened as he lifted her and carried her out of the barn toward his small ranch house. The house was nothing fancy. Just 4 rooms he had built himself with timber hauled from the Smoky Hill River. But it was clean and well-maintained, and he had a proper bed with real sheets his mother had sent him before she passed. He laid the woman down on his bed, then lit more lamps so he could see the extent of her injuries. Besides the bruise on her face, she had cuts on her hands and arms, defensive wounds that told him she had fought back against whoever had done this. Her right ankle was swollen, possibly sprained or broken. He needed to get water and bandages, but first he needed to know if she was bleeding anywhere he could not see. As gently as he could, Quinn checked for serious wounds, trying to maintain what modesty he could for her sake. He found more bruises along her ribs, but no blood, nothing that seemed immediately life-threatening. That was good. He fetched water from the pump outside and clean cloths from his linen chest, then set about cleaning the cuts on her hands and face. She stirred as he worked, moaning softly. Her eyes opened again, and this time they focused on him with more awareness. "You are safe," he told her again. "I am just cleaning your wounds. That ankle needs wrapping too. Can you tell me your name?" "Nora," she whispered. "Nora Kendrick." "Well, Miss Kendrick, can you tell me what happened to you? Who did this?" Her face crumpled and tears spilled down her cheeks, cutting tracks through the dirt. "My husband," she said. "I mean, the man I was supposed to marry. I ran away." Quinn felt anger kindle in his chest, hot and righteous. He had never understood men who raised their hands to women, had seen too much of it in his time, and it never sat right with him. "He is the one who beat you," Nora nodded, wincing at the movement. "His name is Carl Brennan. He owns a ranch south of here, about 20 miles. My father owed him money and could not pay, so he offered me instead. I did not want to marry him, but I had no choice. Yesterday was supposed to be our wedding day, but I ran. I took a horse and I just ran. Did he come after you? Yes, she said, her voice breaking. He and his men. They caught me about 5 miles from here. They beat me, and Carl said he was going to take me back and make me sorry. But one of his men, he was not as cruel as the others. When they camped for the night, he loosened my bonds. I managed to slip away while they were sleeping. I ran until I found your barn. I did not know whose property this was. I just needed to hide. Quinn wrung out the cloth in the basin, watching the water turn pink with her blood. Why did you say my brother's name? Nora looked confused. Your brother. When I found you, the first thing you said was Benjamin. My brother's name was Benjamin. He died 4 years ago. Understanding dawned on her face, followed by something that looked like hope. Benjamin Zeller. Yes, I knew him. He saved my life once when I was 18. I was traveling with my father to Dodge City and we were attacked by bandits. Benjamin was passing by and he drove them off. He was so kind to me, made sure we got safely to town. I never forgot him. When I was running, I kept thinking about him, praying for someone like him to help me again. I suppose I was calling out for him in my delirium. Quinn sat back, stunned. The world was strange sometimes, the way it wove people's lives together across time and distance. His brother had saved this woman 4 years ago, and now she had stumbled into Quinn's barn, broken and desperate, looking for salvation once more. Benjamin was a good man, Quinn said quietly. The best I ever knew. If he helped you once, then I reckon it is my duty to help you now. That Carl Brennan and his men, they will be looking for you. Come morning, they might track you here. Fear flashed across Nora's face again. I am so sorry. I have brought trouble to your door. I should go. I should leave before they find me here. You are not going anywhere on that ankle, Quinn said firmly. And I am not turning you out, but we need to be smart about this. Can you describe Brennan to me? How many men does he have? Carl is a big man, tall and broad, with a red beard going gray. Mean eyes. He usually keeps 4 or 5 ranch hands, and they are all loyal to him. They do whatever he says. Quinn nodded. 5 men plus Brennan was 6 total. Not good odds, but he had faced worse during his time as a cavalry scout before he bought this ranch. He had his rifle, his revolver, and he knew this land better than any stranger would. All right, he said. Here is what we are going to do. You are going to rest here tonight. In the morning, if you are feeling stronger, I am going to take you into Abilene to see the marshal. Marshal Dutton is a fair man. He will help you. No, Nora said, grabbing his wrist with surprising strength. No marshal. Carl has friends everywhere. He pays people to look the other way. The law will not help me. They will just send me back to him. Quinn looked down at her hand on his wrist, saw the desperation in her eyes, and made a decision that would change both their lives. Then you will stay here. You will stay here until we figure out what to do. I will not let him take you. You do not even know me, Nora said. Why would you risk yourself for a stranger? Because my brother would have done the same, Quinn said simply. And because it is the right thing to do. Tears spilled down her cheeks again, but this time they seemed to be tears of relief rather than pain. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. Quinn finished bandaging her wounds and wrapped her ankle as best he could. It was not broken, he decided, just badly sprained. She would need to stay off it for a few days at least. He gave her water to drink and some bread and cold beef from his pantry, which she ate ravenously despite her injuries. When had she last eaten? He wondered. You take the bed, he told her. I will sleep in the main room where I can watch the door. I cannot take your bed, Nora protested weakly. You can and you will. That is not a request, Miss Kendrick. Despite everything, she almost smiled at that. "You are very bossy." "So I have been told," Quinn said. He found her one of his clean shirts to sleep in, turned his back while she changed, then helped her settle under the blankets. She fell asleep almost instantly, exhausted by pain and fear and the adrenaline that had kept her running. Quinn took his rifle and his revolver and settled into the chair by the window in the main room, watching the darkness beyond the glass. He did not expect trouble tonight. If Brennan's men had been camped 5 miles away and she had escaped in the night, they would not find her trail until morning. But come morning, they would come. He was certain of that. He thought about his brother as the night wore on, memories he usually kept locked away surfacing in the quiet darkness. Benjamin had been 5 years younger than Quinn, charming where Quinn was gruff, social where Quinn preferred solitude. Their parents had died of fever when Benjamin was just 15, and Quinn had raised him as best he could. He had thought he was doing a good job, but then Benjamin had fallen in with a bad crowd in Dodge City, men who lived by their guns and their wits and little else. The bank robbery had been Benjamin's first job with that crew and his last. The law had been waiting, tipped off by an informant. In the shootout that followed, Benjamin had taken a bullet to the chest. He had died in the street, 21 years old, and Quinn had not even known about it until 3 days later when a telegram found him at a cattle station in Colorado. He had blamed himself for years. If he had been a better brother, a better guardian, maybe Benjamin would have chosen a different path. But Nora's words tonight had given him a different picture of his brother. Benjamin had saved her from bandits when he was just 19, 2 years before his death. He had been capable of heroism, of kindness. Maybe Quinn had not failed him as completely as he had thought. Dawn broke cold and clear, painting the prairie in shades of pink and gold. Quinn had not slept, but he felt alert, his body accustomed to long watches from his cavalry days. He made coffee and checked on Nora, who was still sleeping soundly. Good. She needed the rest. He was cooking eggs and bacon when he heard the horses, 6 riders, approaching from the south at a steady pace. They were not bothering to hide their approach. Quinn set down his pan, checked his weapons, and stepped out onto the porch. The riders stopped about 30 yards from the house. The man in front matched Nora's description perfectly. Big, red-bearded, with eyes that looked cruel even from a distance. Carl Brennan sat easy in his saddle, confident in his numbers. "Morning," Brennan called out. "You Quinn Zeller?" "I am," Quinn said. "What can I do for you?" "I am looking for a woman. Dark hair, pretty, about 22 years old. She ran away from me yesterday. I tracked her to your property. She is here and I want her back." "I have not seen anyone like that," Quinn said calmly. Brennan's expression hardened. "Now I know that is not true. Her tracks lead right to your barn. My property was stolen from me, Zeller, and I mean to have it back." "Property?" Quinn's voice went cold. "You mean a human being, a woman you tried to force into marriage. That woman's father owed me money. We had an arrangement. She belongs to me." "Nobody belongs to anybody," Quinn said. "This is America, in case you forgot. We fought a war over that particular question." One of Brennan's men laughed, but Brennan himself did not look amused. "You are trying my patience. Hand her over and we will be on our way. Otherwise, this is going to get ugly." "I think you should leave my property," Quinn said, "before you are the ones who get ugly." Brennan's hand moved toward his gun, but Quinn had anticipated it. His rifle was already in his hands, aimed directly at Brennan's chest. "I would not do that if I were you." The 5 men with Brennan tensed, their hands hovering near their weapons. The moment stretched out, dangerous and volatile. Quinn knew he could take maybe 2 of them before they got him, but he also knew that Brennan was the kind of man who valued his own skin above all else. If Quinn took him down, the others might lose their nerve. "You are making a big mistake," Brennan said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. "The mistake would be you not leaving," Quinn said. "I am a fair shot, Brennan. I will get you before any of your men get me. Is one woman worth dying over?" For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Brennan jerked his reins, turning his horse. "This is not over, Zeller. She is mine, and I will get her back. You just made an enemy today." "I will lose sleep over that," Quinn said dryly. Brennan and his men rode off, but Quinn knew this was far from finished. A man like that did not give up easily, especially not when his pride was wounded. Quinn had just humiliated him in front of his men. Brennan would be back, probably with more men, and next time he would not bother with talk. Quinn went back inside to find Nora standing in the bedroom doorway, her face pale. She had changed back into her torn dress, and she looked terrified. "You should have given me to him," she said. "Now he is going to kill you." "He is going to try," Quinn corrected. "But I have been in tighter spots than this and come out breathing. The question is, what do we do now?" "I do not know," Nora said helplessly. "I have nowhere to go. My father died 6 months ago. I have no other family. Carl will hunt me until he finds me." Quinn poured her a cup of coffee and guided her to the table. "Then we need to make sure he cannot find you, or better yet, make sure he has no legal claim to you at all." "What do you mean? You said your father made an arrangement with Brennan, but you never married him, right?" "Right. I ran before the ceremony." "Then legally he has no claim on you. The problem is, in a small place like this, the law sometimes looks the other way when a powerful man wants something. But if you were already married to someone else, there would be nothing he could do." Nora stared at him. "Are you suggesting?" "I am suggesting that you marry me," Quinn said. "Not a real marriage, not like that. Just a legal one on paper. It would protect you. Once you are my wife, Brennan cannot touch you without going through me, and he would have no legal leg to stand on. You would do that?" Nora asked. "Marry a stranger just to protect her?" "I have done stranger things," Quinn said. "And you are not exactly a stranger. You knew my brother. That counts for something." Nora looked down at her coffee, thinking hard. Quinn could see the wheels turning in her mind, weighing her options. Finally, she looked up at him with those green eyes and nodded. "All right," she said. "I will marry you." They rode into Abilene that afternoon, Nora seated carefully behind Quinn on his horse to spare her ankle. The town was bustling, as it usually was in the fall when the cattle drives came through. Cowboys filled the saloons and brothels, spending their hard-earned money on whiskey and women. Quinn avoided the main street, taking back roads to the small church on the edge of town. Reverend Matthews was an old man who had known Quinn since he first settled here 5 years ago. He raised his eyebrows when Quinn explained what he wanted, but he did not ask too many questions. Men and women got married for all sorts of reasons out here, and love was not always one of them. The ceremony took less than 10 minutes. Quinn and Nora stood before the Reverend in the empty church, the afternoon light streaming through the plain glass windows, and repeated the words that would bind them together in the eyes of the law. Quinn did not have a ring, but Reverend Matthews produced a simple gold band from his own wife's jewelry box, a loan until Quinn could buy a proper one. When it was done, Quinn helped Nora back onto the horse and they rode to the marshal's office. Marshal Dutton was in, a grizzled man in his 50s with sharp eyes and a reputation for honesty. "Quinn," he said, standing. "What brings you to town?" "Got married," Quinn said simply, nodding toward Nora. "This is my wife, Nora. I wanted to file the paperwork official-like in case anyone comes asking questions." Dutton's eyes narrowed. "What kind of questions?" "The kind that Carl Brennan might ask." Understanding dawned on the marshal's face. "I heard about that situation. Brennan was in here last week, filing a complaint about a missing woman. Said she was his fiancé. But if she is your wife now, that changes things." "Exactly," Quinn said. Dutton pulled out the necessary forms and filled them in, official documentation of the marriage. He filed copies with the county clerk and gave Quinn his own copy to keep. "Brennan is not going to be happy about this." "I know," Quinn said, "but there is nothing he can do about it now." "Maybe," Dutton said, "but you watch yourself, Quinn. Brennan has a mean streak, and he does not like to lose." They rode back to the ranch as the sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. Nora was quiet behind him, her arms wrapped around his waist to steady herself. Quinn wondered what she was thinking, if she regretted her decision, but he did not ask. What was done back at the ranch. He helped her down from the horse and into the house. She was limping badly now, her ankles swollen worse than before from the riding. He settled her on the couch with her foot elevated and made a simple dinner of beans and cornbread. They ate in awkward silence. Quinn was not used to having someone else in his house, and Nora seemed overwhelmed by everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. Finally, she spoke. "I want you to know that I am grateful," she said, "for everything you have done. I know this marriage is not real, but you have given me my freedom. I will never forget that." "It is real enough," Quinn said. "Real enough to keep Brennan away from you anyway." "What happens now?" Nora asked. "Do I stay here? Do I leave once my ankle heals?" Quinn had been thinking about that all day. "That is up to you. You can stay as long as you need to. I have plenty of space and I could use help around the place, to be honest. Running a ranch alone is hard work." "I do not know much about ranching," Nora admitted. "I did not either when I started," Quinn said. "You learn as you go." Nora smiled at that, a real smile this time, and Quinn felt something shift in his chest. She was pretty when she smiled, even with the bruises. He pushed the thought away. This was a business arrangement, nothing more. He was helping her because it was the right thing to do, because his brother would have wanted him to. That was all. The days that followed fell into a rhythm. Nora's ankle healed slowly, and she spent her time resting and recovering from her ordeal. Quinn tended to his horses and cattle, fixed fences, and prepared for winter. In the evenings, they would sit together and talk, getting to know each other slowly. Quinn learned that Nora had been educated, unusual for a woman on the frontier. Her mother had been a schoolteacher before she died, and she had made sure Nora could read and write and cipher. Nora had a quick mind and a sharp wit, and Quinn found himself enjoying their conversations more than he had expected. Nora learned that Quinn was a man of few words but deep convictions. He was honest to a fault, hardworking and surprisingly gentle for a man who had spent years as a cavalry scout fighting Indians and outlaws. He never raised his voice to her, never made her feel unsafe, even though she was completely dependent on him. She began to trust him in a way she had never trusted any man before. 3 weeks after their marriage, Carl Brennan came back. This time he brought 8 men, and they came at night. Quinn woke to the sound of breaking glass. He was on his feet in an instant, rifle in hand, as fire bloomed in the darkness outside. They had thrown burning torches through the windows, and the curtains were already ablaze. "Nora!" he shouted, running to the bedroom. She was awake, coughing from the smoke, her eyes wide with terror. "We have to get out now." He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the back door, away from the flames that were spreading through the main room. They burst out into the night, and Quinn shoved Nora toward the barn. "Hide in there and do not come out no matter what you hear." "Quinn, no, go," he commanded, and she ran, limping but moving fast enough. Quinn turned to face the men on horseback who were surrounding his burning house. Brennan sat at the center of them, his face triumphant in the firelight. "Should have given her to me when you had the chance," Brennan called out. Now you are going to watch everything you own burn, and then you are going to give me my woman anyway." Quinn did not waste words. He raised his rifle and fired, aiming for Brennan but hitting one of his men instead. The man screamed and fell from his horse as the others scattered, drawing their own weapons. Bullets whined through the air, and Quinn dove for cover behind the water trough. The firefight was brief but intense. Quinn was outnumbered, but he had the advantage of knowing his property in the dark. He moved from cover to cover, taking shots when he could, making every bullet count. He hit 2 more men before a bullet grazed his shoulder, sending a line of fire through his arm. Then he heard hoofbeats approaching fast from the direction of town. Reinforcements. Had Brennan brought even more men, but the voice that rang out was Marshal Dutton's. "Drop your weapons, all of you." The marshal had brought a posse, 6 men from town, all armed and all looking grim. Brennan and his remaining men hesitated, caught between Quinn and the law. "I said drop them." Dutton barked. "You are burning down a man's house, Brennan. That is arson. You are all under arrest." "That man stole my woman," Brennan protested. "That man married a woman who was free to marry whoever she chose," Dutton said coldly. "You got no claim on her, legal or otherwise. Now drop your guns before I drop you." Slowly, reluctantly, Brennan and his men complied. The posse moved in to secure them while Quinn staggered to his feet, holding his bleeding shoulder. The house was fully engulfed now, flames reaching into the night sky. Everything he owned was burning. Nora emerged from the barn, running toward him despite her ankle. "Quinn, oh God, you are hurt." "I am all right," he said, though he was feeling lightheaded from blood loss. "It is just a graze." Dutton came over looking concerned, saw the fire from town. "Figured it might be Brennan making his move. Looks like I was right." "Thanks for the timing," Quinn said. "Thank the Peterson boy. He was riding back from his girl's place and saw them coming out this way, all armed up. He ran to get me." Dutton looked at the burning house. "You got somewhere to stay, the barn," Quinn said. "For now. Come into town tomorrow. We will see about getting you some help rebuilding." Dutton and his posse took Brennan and his men back to town to face charges. Quinn and Nora stood together, watching the house burn to the ground. There was nothing to be done about it now. Everything he owned, all his possessions, his parents' things, Benjamin's few belongings that Quinn had kept, all of it was gone. "I am so sorry," Nora whispered, tears streaming down her face. "This is all my fault. If I had never come here, then you would be married to that monster," Quinn said firmly. "Or dead. This is not your fault, Nora. This is on Brennan, and he is going to pay for it." But standing there in the cold September night, watching his life burn, Quinn could not help but wonder if he had made a terrible mistake. He had thought he was doing the right thing, helping this woman, honoring his brother's memory. Instead, he had lost everything. Nora seemed to sense his thoughts. She took his hand, squeezing it gently. "We will rebuild," she said. "Together. I promise you, Quinn Zeller, I will spend the rest of my life making this up to you." He looked down at her, at this woman who had stumbled into his barn 3 weeks ago and turned his whole world upside down. Her face was smudged with soot, her eyes red from smoke and tears, but there was steel in her gaze, determination in the set of her jaw. She meant what she said. "All right," he said softly. "Together." They spent that night in the barn, huddled together for warmth in the hay. Quinn's shoulder throbbed where the bullet had grazed him, but Nora had cleaned and bandaged it as best she could with supplies from the barn. She lay against his good side, her head on his chest, and despite everything, Quinn felt a strange sense of peace. "Tell me about Benjamin," Nora said quietly. "Tell me what he was really like." So Quinn did. He talked about his brother, about the good times and the bad, about the mistakes Benjamin had made and the good man he had been underneath it all. He talked until his voice went hoarse, until the sky began to lighten with dawn, and Nora listened to every word. When he finally fell silent, Nora lifted her head to look at him. "He would be proud of you," she said, "for what you did for me, for the man you are." "I hope so," Quinn said. "I know so," Nora said, "because I am proud of you too." Something passed between them in that moment, something neither of them had expected. This marriage that had started as a legal convenience, a way to protect her from Brennan, had become something more without either of them quite realizing when it had happened. They were not strangers anymore. They were partners. They were becoming friends. And maybe, just maybe, they were becoming something even more than that. The town of Abilene rallied around them in the days that followed. News of what Brennan had done spread quickly, and people were outraged. Brennan and his men were locked up awaiting trial, and public opinion was firmly against them. Meanwhile, neighbors showed up at Quinn's ranch with timber and tools and strong backs, ready to help rebuild. It took 2 months, but by the end of November, Quinn had a new house. It was smaller than the old one, just 3 rooms instead of 4, but it was solid and well built. The whole community had pitched in, and Quinn was humbled by their generosity. He had always kept to himself, never realizing how many people considered him a friend. Nora threw herself into making the new house a home. She sewed curtains and made rugs from scraps of fabric that the other women donated. She cooked meals for the workers and learned how to tend chickens and milk cows. She was determined to be useful, to prove her worth, and Quinn found himself increasingly impressed by her strength and resilience. She was nothing like what he had expected when he first found her in his barn, broken and terrified. She was tough, adaptable, with a core of iron beneath her gentle exterior. And she was beautiful, more beautiful every day as the bruises faded and health returned to her cheeks. Quinn tried to ignore the growing attraction he felt for her. This was supposed to be a marriage of convenience, not a real marriage. She was here because she needed protection, not because she wanted to be his wife. But it was getting harder and harder to remember that, especially on the nights when they sat together by the fire, talking and laughing like old friends. The trial happened in early December. The whole town turned out to watch as Brennan and his men faced justice. The evidence was overwhelming. The burned-out house, Quinn's testimony, the testimony of Marshal Dutton and his posse, even testimony from the ranch hand who had loosened Nora's bonds and allowed her to escape, a young man who had finally found the courage to speak up against his employer. The judge sentenced Brennan to 10 years in prison for arson and attempted murder. His men received lesser sentences, except for the one who had helped Nora escape. He was given a suspended sentence and the opportunity to start over somewhere else. When it was over, Quinn and Nora walked out of the courthouse together into the cold December air. Snow was falling softly, the first snow of winter, dusting the streets of Abilene in white. "It is really over," Nora said wonderingly. "He cannot hurt us anymore." "No," Quinn agreed. "He cannot." They stood there in the snow, and Quinn realized he was still holding her hand. He had taken it during the trial and had not let go. She had not pulled away. "Quinn," Nora said softly, "can I ask you something, anything? When you married me, you said it was not a real marriage. Just a legal one. Is that still true?" Quinn's heart started beating faster. "I do not know," he said honestly. "What do you want it to be?" Nora looked up at him, snowflakes catching in her dark hair. "I want it to be real," she said. "These past few months, getting to know you, working beside you, I have come to care for you deeply. You are a good man, Quinn Zeller, the best man I have ever known, and I think maybe I am falling in love with you." Joy surged through Quinn's chest, so powerful it nearly took his breath away. "I am already in love with you," he said. "I have been for weeks, but I did not think you could feel the same way, I thought you were just here because you had nowhere else to go." "I am here because this is where I want to be," Nora said. "With you, if you will have me. Not as a convenience, but as your real wife." In answer, Quinn pulled her close and kissed her. It was their first kiss, standing in the falling snow outside the courthouse, and it felt like coming home. Nora kissed him back with all the passion and love that had been building between them for months, and Quinn knew with absolute certainty that this was right. This was meant to be. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathless and grinning like fools. "So that is a yes," Nora teased. "That is absolutely a yes," Quinn said. They walked back to their horses hand in hand, and this time when they rode back to the ranch, Nora rode in front of Quinn, cradled in his arms, her head resting against his chest. The snow continued to fall, blanketing the prairie in peaceful white, and Quinn felt happier than he had in years. That night, they made their marriage real in every sense of the word. Quinn was gentle with Nora, patient, making sure she felt safe and cherished. She had been through so much trauma, and he wanted this to be perfect for her, a new beginning free from fear and pain. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the darkness, warm beneath the quilts, listening to the wind howl outside. "I never thought I could be this happy," Nora whispered. "A few months ago, I thought my life was over. I thought I would be trapped with Carl Brennan forever or dead. And now I am here with you, and I feel like I have been given a second chance at life." "We both have," Quinn said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "You gave me something too, Nora. Before you came, I was just existing, going through the motions. I had convinced myself I was content being alone, but I was not content. I was lonely. You changed that. You made me remember what it feels like to really live." "Then we saved each other," Nora said. "I guess we did," Quinn agreed. Winter passed slowly but peacefully. Quinn and Nora settled into married life, learning each other's rhythms and habits, building a true partnership. Nora proved to be an excellent ranch manager, keeping the books and managing supplies with an efficiency that impressed Quinn. She also turned out to have a talent for training horses, a patient, gentle touch that the animals responded to. For his part, Quinn found himself becoming more social, more open. Nora's warmth and kindness drew people to them, and soon their little ranch became a gathering place for neighbors. They hosted dinners and barn dances, and Quinn discovered he actually enjoyed having people around, as long as Nora was by his side. Spring came, and with it new life. The cattle calved successfully, the horses foaled, and the prairie exploded in wildflowers. And Nora told Quinn she was pregnant. He was overjoyed but also terrified. Childbirth was dangerous on the frontier, and he had already lost so many people he loved. But Nora was strong and healthy, and the town had a good doctor who had delivered dozens of babies successfully. "We are going to be fine," Nora assured him, seeing the fear in his eyes. "I promise you, Quinn, I am not going anywhere." Throughout the summer, Quinn watched in awe as Nora's body changed as their child grew inside her. He was protective to the point of being overbearing, trying to do all the heavy work himself and constantly worrying about her. Nora bore it with good humor, though she did put her foot down when he tried to forbid her from riding horses. "I am pregnant, not an invalid," she told him firmly. "I know my limits, and I will not do anything to endanger our baby, but I also will not spend 9 months sitting in a rocking chair. Trust me, Quinn." So he learned to trust her judgment, though it did not stop him from worrying. The baby came in early November, a full year after they had rebuilt the house. The labor was long and difficult, and Quinn paced outside the bedroom door for hours while the doctor and 2 neighbor women attended to Nora. When he finally heard the cry of a newborn, he nearly collapsed with relief. Dr. Morrison emerged, smiling. "Congratulations, Quinn. You have a son. Strong, healthy boy with good lungs. Your wife did beautifully." Quinn rushed into the bedroom to find Nora propped up against the pillows, exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. When she pulled back the blanket to show him their son, Quinn felt his heart expand in a way he had never experienced before. The baby had Nora's dark hair and Quinn's strong chin. His eyes were tightly closed, but when Quinn carefully touched his tiny hand, the baby's fingers curled around his finger with surprising strength. "He is perfect," Quinn breathed. "He is," Nora agreed. "What should we name him?" Quinn thought for only a moment. "Benjamin," he said. "If that is all right with you, I want to honor my brother's memory." Tears filled Nora's eyes, but they were happy tears. "I think that is perfect. Benjamin Zeller. Welcome to the world, little one." Quinn sat on the edge of the bed, his arm around Nora, looking down at their son, and felt a sense of completeness he had never known before. This was his family. This was everything that mattered. "You remember that first night?" he asked Nora softly. "When I found you in the barn?" If someone had told me then that a year later we would be here like this, I would have thought they were crazy. "I remember," Nora said. "I was so scared, so lost, and then you found me and everything changed." "You changed my life," Quinn said. "You and this little one. You gave me a reason to be more than just a lonely cowboy working his ranch. You gave me a future." "We gave each other a future," Nora corrected gently. "That is what love does. It opens up possibilities we never imagined." They sat together in the quiet bedroom, their son sleeping peacefully between them, and Quinn sent up a silent prayer of thanks to whatever power had brought Nora to his barn that night. He thought about his brother, about how Benjamin's one act of kindness years ago had set in motion a chain of events that led to this moment. Maybe there was a pattern to things, a purpose behind the seeming randomness of life. Or maybe it was just chance and luck and two lonely people finding each other at exactly the right moment. Either way, Quinn was grateful. Young Benjamin proved to be a happy, healthy baby who quickly became the center of their world. Quinn discovered that fatherhood suited him. He loved holding his son, teaching him things as he grew, watching him discover the world. Nora was a natural mother, patient and loving but also firm when she needed to be. As Benjamin grew into a toddler, Quinn and Nora talked about having more children. "I always wanted a big family," Nora confessed. "I was an only child and I was lonely growing up. I want Benjamin to have siblings." "Then we will give him siblings," Quinn said, kissing her. "As many as you want." Their second child, a daughter they named Sarah, came 2 years after Benjamin. She had her mother's green eyes and a sunny disposition that made everyone who met her smile. 2 years after Sarah came another son, whom they named Daniel. And 2 years after Daniel came another daughter, Emma. The ranch prospered as their family grew. Quinn expanded his herd, bought more land, built onto the house to accommodate their growing brood. He hired ranch hands to help with the work, good men who were loyal and hardworking. Nora managed the household and the business side of things with calm efficiency, somehow juggling 4 children and a ranch without ever seeming overwhelmed. They were happy. Not in a fairy tale way where nothing ever went wrong, but in the real, earned way of 2 people who had chosen each other and worked hard to build a life together. They had arguments sometimes, disagreements about money or the children or ranch business, but they always talked through them. They had learned early on that communication and honesty were the foundations of their marriage, and they never let problems fester. The children grew up hearing stories about their Uncle Benjamin, the brave young man who had saved their mother's life years before they were born. They grew up knowing their father was a hero who had protected their mother from a dangerous man. They grew up surrounded by love and security, never doubting for a moment that they were wanted and cherished. Young Benjamin, the oldest, showed signs of being a natural rancher like his father. He was serious and responsible, taking his duties helping around the ranch very seriously even as a young boy. Sarah was the family scholar, always reading, always asking questions, dreaming of becoming a teacher like her grandmother had been. Daniel was the wild one, always getting into scrapes and adventures, keeping his parents on their toes. And Emma, the baby, was sweet and gentle, with a talent for music that emerged when she was barely old enough to walk. The years passed quickly, as they always do. Quinn's hair started going gray at the temples. Laugh lines appeared around Nora's eyes. They watched their children grow, watched the town of Abilene grow and change around them. The wild frontier of their youth was slowly being tamed. Railroads and telegraph lines connecting Kansas to the rest of the country, bringing civilization and progress. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Quinn took Nora into Abilene for a special dinner at the new hotel restaurant, leaving the children with a trusted neighbor. It was a rare night out, just the two of them, and they savored every moment. 10 years, Nora said wonderingly over dessert. Sometimes it feels like just yesterday that you found me in your barn. Other times it feels like we have been together forever. I know what you mean, Quinn said. Both and neither. Time is strange that way. Do you ever regret it? Nora asked. Marrying me, taking on all the trouble I brought with me. Quinn reached across the table to take her hand. Never, he said firmly. Not once, not for a single second. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Nora. You and our children. Everything I have, everything I am, I owe to you. That is not true, Nora protested. You were already a good man when I met you. Maybe, Quinn conceded, but I was a lonely man. A man just going through the motions of living without really feeling alive. You changed that. You made me whole. Tears shimmered in Nora's eyes. You saved my life, she said. In every way a person can be saved. You gave me freedom, safety, love, a family, everything I have ever wanted. I love you so much, Quinn Zeller. I love you too, Quinn said. Always have, always will. They finished their dinner and walked back to their hotel room hand in hand, looking up at the stars scattered across the prairie sky. The same stars that had been shining that night 10 years ago when Quinn found Nora in his barn, when both their lives had changed forever. More years passed. Young Benjamin grew into a fine young man and took over more and more of the ranch operations, giving Quinn more time to spend with Nora and their other children. Sarah went off to college, one of the first women in the county to do so, making her parents immensely proud. Daniel settled down after his wild youth and became a deputy marshal, carrying on the tradition of fighting for justice. Emma married a musician and moved to Kansas City, though she visited often. Quinn and Nora became grandparents, watching their children have children of their own. It was strange and wonderful to see pieces of themselves reflected in these new little faces, to watch the cycle continue. They took their grandchildren on rides around the ranch, teaching them the same lessons they had taught their own children about hard work and integrity and love. On quiet evenings, Quinn and Nora would sit together on the porch of their ranch house, watching the sun set over the prairie that had been their home for so many years. They would hold hands and talk about their day, about their children and grandchildren, about plans for the future, about memories from the past. "Do you ever think about that night?" Quinn asked one evening. "The night I found you." "All the time," Nora said. "I think about how scared I was, how hopeless I felt, and then I think about how you appeared like an answer to a prayer, like Benjamin himself sent you to me." "Maybe he did," Quinn said. "I like to think he is watching over us, proud of the life we have built." "I know he is," Nora said with certainty. Just like I know we are going to spend the rest of our lives together, growing old and watching our family grow. We made it, Quinn. Against all the odds, we made it. We did, Quinn agreed, bringing her hand to his lips to kiss it gently. And I would not change a single thing. They sat together as the stars came out, the same stars that had witnessed their beginning, now witnessing the full bloom of their love story. A story that had started with a frightened woman in a barn whispering the name of a dead man, and had become something beautiful and lasting and true. Quinn thought about all the twists and turns that had brought them to this moment. If he had not gone to the barn that night, if Nora had not escaped Brennan's men, if Benjamin had not saved her years before and made an impression that lasted, if Quinn had not had the courage to stand up to Brennan, if the town had not rallied around them, if they had not chosen love over fear, any one of those things could have changed everything. But they had all happened exactly as they were supposed to, and Quinn and Nora had been given the gift of a lifetime together. A lifetime of love and partnership, of raising children and building a legacy, of facing challenges and celebrating triumphs side by side. As they sat together on that porch, Quinn realized that this was all he had ever really wanted. Not wealth or fame or adventure, just this. A good woman by his side, a family they had built together, and the knowledge that he had lived a life that mattered. A life filled with love. "Thank you," he said softly to Nora. "For what?" she asked. "For stumbling into my barn that night, for trusting me, for choosing me, for giving me the best life I could have imagined." Nora leaned her head against his shoulder. "Thank you for finding me," she said, "for saving me, for loving me, for giving me a home and a family and a reason to wake up grateful every morning." They sat together as the night deepened around them, two people who had found each other in the darkness and built a life in the light. The lonely cowboy was lonely no more, and the frightened woman had found her courage and her home. Together, they had created something that would last long after they were gone, a legacy of love that would live on in their children and their children's children. The prairie wind whispered through the grass, carrying with it the sounds of cattle lowing and horses whickering and the distant laughter of grandchildren playing in the yard. It was the sound of life, of family, of everything that mattered. Quinn tightened his arm around Nora and she snuggled closer. They did not need words anymore. After so many years together, they could communicate in silence, in the comfortable quiet of two souls who knew each other completely. The moon rose over the Kansas prairie, silver and full, illuminating the land they had made their own. The house stood solid and strong, filled with memories and love. The barn where they had first met still stood as well, a reminder of where it all began. Inside that barn, sometimes late at night, Quinn swore he could still hear the echo of Nora's whispered voice saying Benjamin's name. It was a reminder that love could reach across time and death, that one person's kindness could ripple forward in ways they never knew, that nothing was ever truly lost if it was held in memory and honored by action. Benjamin had saved Nora once, years ago, and in doing so had saved Quinn too, though he had been dead before Quinn even met her. His brother's legacy lived on in the woman beside him, in their children, in the life they had built. It was a legacy of heroism and kindness, of standing up for what was right even when it was difficult, of helping those in need even when there was nothing to gain. Quinn had tried to live up to that legacy every day of his life since finding Nora. He had tried to be the kind of man his brother would have been proud to call family. And looking at the life he had built, the family he had raised, the love he had found, he thought maybe he had succeeded. As the years continued to pass, Quinn and Nora aged gracefully together. They walked slower, their hair went fully white, their hands became gnarled with arthritis, but their love never dimmed. If anything, it grew stronger, deeper, richer with each passing year. They celebrated their 25th anniversary, then their 30th, then their 35th. Each milestone was marked with gatherings of children and grandchildren, with laughter and stories and thanks for the years they had been given together. On their 40th anniversary, the family threw a huge party at the ranch. All 4 of their children came with their families, along with what seemed like half the county. There was music and dancing and enough food to feed an army. Quinn and Nora sat in places of honor, watching their legacy dance and laugh and live around them. Young Benjamin, now a man in his early 40s himself and the proud father of 5, stood up to give a toast. "To my parents," he said, raising his glass, "who taught us what love looks like. Not the easy fairy tale kind of love, but the real kind. The kind that stands up to bullies and rebuilds after fires and gets up every morning to do the hard work of making a life together. The kind that lasts. Thank you for showing us the way. Thank you for building this family. Thank you for everything." Everyone cheered and drank, and Quinn felt his eyes grow wet. He looked at Nora and saw tears streaming down her face too, but she was smiling. "We did good," she whispered to him. "We did," he agreed. "We really did." The party went late into the night, and when it was finally over and all the guests had gone home, Quinn and Nora walked out to the barn together. It was the same barn where they had first met, though it had been repaired and expanded over the years. They stood in the spot where Quinn had found Nora lying in the hay 40 years ago, and they remembered. "I was so scared that night," Nora said. "I thought I was going to die. I did not know that I was actually about to begin living." "I was so lonely," Quinn said. "I thought I had resigned myself to it, that I would spend my life alone. I did not know that the answer to that loneliness was lying right here in my barn, waiting for me to find her." They held each other in the darkness, 2 old people who had once been young, who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful. Outside, the prairie stretched away under the stars, the same prairie that had witnessed their entire story. Quinn lived to be 78 years old. He died peacefully in his sleep one winter night, Nora beside him as she had been for more than 40 years. His last words to her were, "I love you," and her last words to him were, "I will see you again." Nora lived another 5 years after Quinn passed. She spent those years surrounded by her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, telling stories about Quinn and Benjamin and the old days on the frontier. She told the story of how she and Quinn had met dozens of times, and it never lost its power to move people to tears. When Nora finally passed, she was laid to rest beside Quinn on a hill overlooking the ranch, under a tree they had planted together on their first anniversary. Their children erected a simple headstone that read, "Quinn and Nora Zeller, together forever." The ranch stayed in the family for generations, passed down through young Benjamin's line. Each new generation heard the story of how it all began, of the lonely cowboy and the frightened woman, and the name that changed everything. It became family legend, a reminder of where they came from and what they were built on. And sometimes, on quiet nights, when the moon was full and the wind whispered through the grass, people swore they could see 2 figures walking hand in hand across the prairie, still together, still in love forever. The story of Quinn and Nora became the foundation upon which their entire family was built. It was a story about courage and kindness, about standing up for what was right, about love that conquered fear and adversity. It was a reminder that sometimes the best things in life come when we open our hearts to help a stranger, when we choose compassion over convenience, when we risk everything for love. Their great-grandchildren told the story to their children, and those children told it to theirs. The details might have shifted slightly with each telling, but the heart of it remained true. A lonely man found a lost woman, and together they built a life more beautiful than either had dreamed possible. In Abilene, the story became local history, taught in schools alongside other frontier tales. The Zeller Ranch became a landmark, a symbol of the pioneering spirit that had built Kansas. Historians came to interview the family to document the story, to preserve it for future generations. But for the family themselves, it was not just history. It was personal. It was the reason they existed, the foundation of everything they were. Every time they gathered for holidays or celebrations, someone would inevitably bring up Quinn and Nora, would tell a story about them, would raise a glass in their honor. The original ranch house, expanded and updated over the years, still stood. The barn where Quinn first found Nora was preserved as well, kept in good repair by each generation. It had become a kind of shrine, a place where family members went to reflect and remember. Young Benjamin's youngest son, Thomas, who inherited the ranch in his turn, placed a plaque in the barn marking the spot where it all began. It read simply, "Here in the autumn of 1878, Quinn Zeller found Nora Kendrick and their love story began. May we all be so brave, so kind, and so blessed." The story lived on, a testament to the power of love and the unpredictability of fate. It reminded people that life could change in an instant, that a single moment of courage or compassion could alter the course of everything, that love could be found in the most unexpected places. And in the end, that was the legacy Quinn and Nora left behind. Not just a successful ranch or a large family, though those things mattered too. Their true legacy was the proof that love could overcome anything, that two people who chose each other and committed to building a life together could create something that lasted for generations. The lonely cowboy had found his home in the woman who whispered his brother's name. The frightened woman had found her courage and her future in the man who offered her protection, and then his heart. Together, they had built something that would never be forgotten, a love story for the ages, a reminder that even in the harsh wilderness of the frontier, love could bloom and flourish and endure. And so their story ended, not with sadness or loss, but with continuation. They lived on in their descendants, in the ranch they had built, in the stories that were told about them. They lived on in every act of kindness and courage inspired by their example, in every couple who chose love over fear, in every person who offered help to a stranger in need. Quinn and Nora Zeller had found each other in the darkness of a barn on the Kansas prairie in 1878, and their love had lit up the world around them. It continued to shine, a beacon across the generations, a reminder that true love never dies. It transforms, it endures, it ripples out to touch lives that will never know its source but will feel its warmth all the same. That was the real magic of their story. Not that it had a happy ending, though it did. Not that they overcame obstacles and lived long lives together, though they did that too. The magic was that their love became bigger than themselves, became a legacy that would outlive them both, became a light that would guide their family for generations to come. And in that way, the lonely cowboy and the woman in the barn achieved a kind of immortality. Not in the way of presidents or generals or famous outlaws, but in the way that mattered most. In the hearts and memories of those who came after them, in the example they set, in the love they built that would never, ever fade away.